Hello, Nerd Fam, and welcome back to our special exclusive series with Google Cloud, Passport to Containers. My name is Savannah Peterson. Very delighted to be coming to you from the Google Cloud HQ here in Sunnyvale, California, with two new fabulous Passport guests, Aja and Jason. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. This is going to be awesome.
This is awesome. This is definitely one of our cooler sets. I have to say, I'm vibing with the library. Y'all also made a trip to be here from Seattle and Denver. Thank you so much.
Oh, anytime. We also tried to coordinate our attire. You couldn't tell.
Next time, send a girl a text. I'll get on the level. I'll get my Google Green on. That's no problem. Aja, I noticed something when doing my research on you that you had recently posed the question to your LinkedIn community to describe your job in 10 words or less.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to start this segment by letting each of you do this. Aja, since it's your question, I'll open with you.
So there's a lot of ways I can do that, depending on who I'm talking to. But if I'm talking to like just friends at a barbecue, I help people make cool stuff. That is my job. I teach folks how to build cool stuff with Google Cloud products and Google products. I help them understand the concepts behind some of the new tech. And I hope that by learning that stuff, they build cool stuff and they show me.
Fantastic. I can't wait to talk about more of that today. Jason, what about you? 10 words.
Help people code things. That's
4. That was great.
4.
Brevity, your talent.
I'm known for that.
Yeah.
I also tell my parents that I help demystify coding.
Ooh.
Which then they're like, what does demystify mean? I'm like, well, it's just like engineering. They're engineers. You know, it's like helping people get to an outcome, which is what a lot of things are in engineering that we do just with like numbers or code or math. So
love it.
Try to make it easy.
Yeah, you're here to help the helpers and the creators. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
Before we dig into our content today, we've opened each one of these segments with a fun question that Bobby and I came up with, which is, when did you fall in love with tech? Jason, I'm going to start with you this time.
Okay, so I fell into tech. Had no idea what it was until someone gave me an Access database in like 2015. Like, hey, you can like crunch numbers in this. And I was like,
so how did you fall into it? You just fell into a physical database?
Literally fell. No, I was on a consulting project and like someone needs to fix this Access database because there's a bunch of problems. I was like, okay. So started doing that in data, and then graduate into software engineering, and then DevOps and all those other things. But purely happenstance, and it was here's a challenge, go solve the challenge, and it's like, well, that's how we got here.
So necessity was the mother of the skill adoption in this case.
Yeah, and always trying to bite off slightly more than you can chew.
Yeah, it seems to be a common theme of everyone in this series.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
For sure. Not surprised, Jason. Aja, what about you?
Oh, my story is a little more, traditional. I was in my school library when I was, 7, maybe 8 years old. And there was this illustrated children's book on coding in BASIC. And I'm like,
this.
I can tell computers what to do. Tell me more. And I wrote out programs on that kindergarten, first grade writing paper with the extra dotted lines in the center. Never actually got to run them because it was the 80s. There weren't a lot of computers around, but I was super into it and just kept kind of poking at it whenever I got an opportunity, and now I'm here.
Okay, that's incredible. First of all, we just got to step back for a second. Where was this library?
In my elementary school that was, located in the Seattle suburbs in the 1980s, where there may have been some computer people.
So, I just want to say shout out to the computer nerds in the 80s in the Pacific Northwest for there being this illustrated children's book. I didn't even know those existed.
I can't find it. I've tried to find it numerous times and I cannot find it. So maybe I'm, false memory and I just, dreamed it. But I very vividly remember this animated book. And it's saying, in BASIC, people count by 10, so in case you need to make mistakes and shove things in the middle between the line numbers. And I'm like, this is the coolest stuff ever.
Okay, I love this. Internet, this is a challenge for you and our audience. Someone needs to find this animated book that talks about BASIC from the 80s, all right? Whoever does, we'll figure out some sort of super cool prize.
I will be so grateful.
Google and theCUBE swag, I promise. We got this for y'all. Well, that is just incredible. I love that was a seed planted so young, and now you help other people build.
I just think it's really cool that you can make stuff with, at the end of the day, electricity. And it's cool and it's fun, and the idea, even that young, that you could, computer games were a thing, you had an Atari, but wait, people can do this. And I could theoretically do this, which is such an amazing like light bulb moment for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So can we expect you to publish a children's book anytime soon?
No. Books, no. I could not draw those amazing illustrations that they had.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can figure out some ways to do that. I bet Gemini could help. Like, we've definitely got the tools. Bringing us into this conversation, so what I've really appreciated about this series is we do a lot of demystification, and we separate the myth from reality in terms of what people are doing, what tools are actually working for that, and talk a lot about the dreams that are obtainable now versus the things that we'll see farther along in the future. I think it helps ease the fears of folks ramping up, as well as educate those making some really expensive decisions right now. Jason, I know you're having a lot of conversations with developers, with your community. What are people talking about? Tell us about the hype versus what's actually getting done.
Yeah, it's a great question. So let's start obviously with the hype. Agents, a lot of hype.
What's that?
An agent, yeah. You think so where we were really 3 years into this whole like big push for LLMs and generative AI. You could argue it started back in 2018-ish, with some of the things that were published with like GPT and transformers. But you think now, so agents, right? How do we get code to do things for us on our behalf, and execute those goals? Like, we're starting to like be kind of in that territory. What I think people, and this is where a lot of what Aj and I talk about is actually terminology. Like, these tools have existed for a long time. You think about chatbots even in the late 2010s, like.
Before that even.
Yeah, even earlier than that. But like slightly, we're more sophisticated, but still, how do we get computers to do stuff for us and like act on our behalf, get to a goal that, maybe that's like a happy customer, right, at the end of the day. Like, it's not really that different. Like, the business things that we're doing haven't really changed. Get customers, grow customers, sell to customers, make customers happy. Like, I don't think those have been reinvented in the past 4 years. Or even 3 years.
Or even like 150 years since the
Yeah,
Industrial Revolution.
Business is business.
Yeah, but like take that and then so hype, and then like where are we at? Well, I think you're starting to see more, okay, well, how do we actually break apart that problem? Because you think about it, it's like, oh my gosh, how do I do all these things like with one agent? You're like, well, actually, if you think about, yourself, like you're a collection of many skills. How do we use those skills to like do a specific thing like math, like addition, another skill, subtraction, and just using coding for those parts. And here's the thing, like you can start small, start with addition.
Yeah.
And then move on from that.
Yeah, one of the things that I've really noticed when I'm talking to folks is that there's a lot of folks who feel super intimidated. And like that's one of the things we do. We try to talk to folks because there's some new stuff. There's some math. There's a lot of math. But you can do a lot with these technologies, with just the existing stuff we know about orchestrating systems, deploying things to production, and just general software engineering. And so a lot of what I spend time doing with folks is they hear the hype and they hear these words, transformers, agents, things like that. And at the end of the day, an agent is some code with a model or several and a job. And like you can think about it, hand wave as a microservice. And like that is a thing that a lot of folks who were coding when I was in the early 2000s and stuff, we know that. We went through the microservice craze. So I spend a lot of time explaining that the hype and the reality, there's a difference, but a lot of it is just around terminology, and that the skills we already have are useful still. And that we actually have a lot of the base skills we need to work with these tools, and there's not that much more to learn.
Yeah, Aj, I think that's a really good point because, I mean, we were talking about AI chatbots a year ago instead of calling it agentic, right? The whole lexicon has changed, and it sounds silly to say that now, but I was looking back on some interviews from literally 12 months ago, and I thought, oh my goodness, I look like a fool, but it wasn't the case. And the reality is it's going to ebb and flow and change a lot more as these things become adopted at scale. Don't be afraid by a term. Ask a friend or ask one of us or watch some of these videos and realize that we've been here before. This motion isn't completely foreign, and it is changing, but we are learning together. And I know there's a lot of tools on the Google platform, as well as in addition to the work that you both do, that really help alleviate that scary top of the roller coaster feeling when you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm about to dive into this. That's really scary.
Well, take that. The first season of our series that we did, I think we talked about retrieval augmented generation, which for those who are like queuing in is just retrieving information from a database.
But calling it RAG made it sound like it was
Calling
so
it
much
RAG.
more
Super fancy.
like, oh goodness, right? It's
Super
like
fancy.
the same thing as calling an operator to get to get a telephone number, right? It's not
Exactly, and then you're like, wait, but what is this? Oh, it's embedding. Like, it's a vector.
Math. It's math.
right. Yeah.
Oh, so it's a vector database. You're like, oh yeah, but what else is there? It's like, well, like you can do some coding things on the front to like find vectors, and maybe there's some like things there that you do. But at the end of the day, you're just searching vectors for vectors that look similar. And granted, we've also evolved on that a little bit in terms of like different strategies, but fundamentally, it's still the same pattern that you're trying to do.
It's just a different kind of database retrieval with a different kind of index. Like I remember the day that I finally snapped some of the stuff snapped together for me, and I texted one of my coworkers, and I'm like, wait, is vector search just fancy math indices on a database? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay then.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, so actually I do know most of this, and like there are a lot of great tools. There's a lot of stuff that like helps guide you, gives you best practices, frameworks to help you work with this. But like at the end of the day, it's not. We've been evolving tech. Like I've been in tech 20 plus years at this point, closer to 25. And when I started, the mobile revolution hadn't happened. And like stuff is constantly changing. That is one of the coolest parts of the job.
Yeah.
But also, we know how to deal with change because we've been doing it our entire careers.
Well, and like agents, I mean, you could take the very simple approach and just say that they're orchestration.
Or you can say that you know it's some code with a job.
Yeah, that orchestrates some other things and like executes
And it has the tools to do that job. But at the end of the day, it's some code with a job. And like some of those tools might be an LLM or an API, and we just call those tools. Cool.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And I think it becomes less overwhelming when we think about it like that. And think about it as that literal agency, which is why it's called an agent. It's not some freaky, scary black box of chaos. Well, most of the time at least. So staying with this separating myth from reality thing that we've got going on here, Ajay, I'm going to come to you first on this one. What sort of success is being realized, and where are you seeing a lot of progress and rapid adoption versus what's still a little dreamy in terms of project scope?
Oh, it's tricky because it's all over the place. Like
so let's talk about it.
It's any tech adoption curve. You got the curve, and you've got the folks, at one end who are just doing amazing stuff that I didn't even know was possible. And like I talked to folks at startups, like, wait, that's super cool. Where did you even come up with that idea? And they're using agents, and they're building systems, and they're finding ways to efficiently process large amounts of information to make it easier for humans to comprehend and interact with, which like, awesome. And then I have folks who are like, okay, can you tell me about this AI thing? And we have a conversation about the box that an LLM fits in. Because like there are things that they're amazing at. And there are also things that they're not awesome at. And that's when you need custom models, or you need SLMs, or you need to use traditional AI techniques. And so like I have a hard problem answering that question because like day to day I see both. I'm really inspired by some of the systems that people are making to reduce toil, using the SRE term from the SRE book. There are tasks that are repetitive, are easily automatable or somewhat automatable, and in many cases, they're not, toil.
Yeah. Well, toil is the right word for it, though.
Yeah.
I think one of the terms that's actually kind of churns my gears a little bit in the era that we're in right now is productivity. And people don't think of themselves as being more productive. They think of themselves as having more time to do things that they want to do, or more creative time to build, or whatever that might be. Yeah. So, but when we think about toil psychologically, it's what creates toil in your day. The worst, most boring, irritable part of your day.
Or even just the little stuff that adds up, those 2 and 3 minute tasks. Like one of the first things I played around with and built was a tool to help me break down big projects and better organize my weekends with my chores and stuff, because like those 2 or 3 minute context switches they were adding up. And so just something that helped me break down the big tasks, group stuff together and stuff was really super interesting. Did I ship it? No, but it was fun to build, and I actually got some value out of it.
Yeah, well, and it made you think a little bit differently about.
Well, yeah, and it also showed me that these are some of the things that this tech can do for me, and make ways that I find beneficial and useful for my day to day.
Yeah, which is, I think, some of the most exciting inspiration right now coming out is these little pockets and these little niches of application. Building on that, and I want both of you to answer this, but Jason, I'm going to start with you. I'm big on expectation management. I actually
Okay.
think as an analyst, that's sort of my job.
Yeah.
And I think that doesn't mean I'm not excitable and get very pumped, but how would you advise companies, people, developers starting out, or wherever they are in their journey, to manage their expectations about LLMs and about agents right now?
Yeah, so couple things with that, right? One of the things that I found in my personal workflow, even if you think about expectations, is just using a large language model for the initial question and plan. And I find where we're at now with even thinking models, like that actually has helped me kind of reset my expectations about what I could also get out of an LLM. And it's, hey, sometimes I don't even read the actual output, but I read the thinking notes.
Yeah.
It's like I'll go into AI Studio and I'll be like,
Oh, that's
hey, like,
interesting.
what do you think
And that makes a
about
lot of
this?
sense.
And then I see how the LLM
What the
is
reasoning
actually,
was,
yeah.
essentially.
Because
Yeah.
I actually care more about that in particular in like an ideation phase. So hey, well,
For
here's
sure.
this. All right, I've been at this for a while. I want 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Oh, 6 is interesting. And then 7, 8, 9, I know I need to do that too. But 6 was actually something I hadn't considered. So how do I integrate that into my flow? Like that's an easy way that I've been kind of using it to, in some sense, like hack my own brain with some of these things.
It's like show your work when we were kids in school.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which I was like, why do I have to do that? And then you
But
do
it
that,
makes
you're like,
so much more sense now.
yeah, and like,
Yeah.
oh, and you messed up step 5 on this problem, and as a result, the answer was one. I was like, oh, that's why I had to do that. Yeah, cool. The other thing, like shifting to like outcome management. I see a lot of folks when they start using these to ask a very specific task, and then of course like the model fails on the test. And it's like, oh, fine, like it's not going to work for my thing. Like move on. And so take a step back from like how much context do you have to answer that problem? Like is this like one of those kind of like asymmetric information things that we talk about in negotiating? It's like, like didn't have all the information, so couldn't answer the problem or couldn't negotiate effectively with you. It's like, it's no different. So, how do you give it, either an outcome and kind of take yourself out of the problem set, or how do you make sure that you're giving it all of the information that's actually relevant? And sometimes that's like actually using the LLM to just like make the list of things that it needs to do before you actually answer the problem in kind of like a plan tasks model. But like those are, to me, like easy things that like once I started doing them and like reprogram like how I interact, like actually made it far easier to then use these things in a way that was effective for my use case.
You really reminded me of this great exercise we did in argumentative essay. It must have been 4th grade, and you had to write down how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
The classic.
Yeah.
Yes, and of course the teacher makes the PB&Js exactly as described, and you're ending up with this mess of jelly everywhere and peanut butter on the wrong side of the bread, and it.
Yeah.
And it was such a that has stuck with me forever as a communicator in thinking about how to do it most effectively. And you're talking exactly about that. You're talking about looking at a system and saying, okay, your reasoning needs to start with buying the ingredients from the grocery store, and then you need to lay them out and put them on in this order and put them in a sandwich bag and then go do it. When you break it down like that, it's as simple as making lunch.
It is, except that you think about it, you're like, well, when you said buy the ingredients, like what did that actually mean?
Yeah.
And like even taking that and saying, okay, do I want it to specifically buy in this order, or is the outcome that I just need to have these things and then I outsource? Like even like how do you purchase or get it? Like
is it
you just need
Instacart
these
or did I
5
walk
things.
through the grocery store essentially?
Well, and do you care?
Right.
Yeah.
And like one of the things that Jason says a lot, and I very much agree with, is how much context, what information would you need to be successful if you were going to, have a friend do this task for you, or if you're a manager, have someone on your team do this? What do you need to do to set them up to win? And then how much of that and in what format do you need to do to set the tools you're working with up to win? And like I believe, like I really, when I'm talking to folks, one of the things that I always come back to is this is a skill. Just like coding is a skill, just like understanding architectures is a skill, just like SRE is a skill, just like all this stuff is a skill. Using these tools effectively is a skill. And so I had a lot of failures. I will own up to that. I had a lot of times where I'm like, how the heck are you making that work? Because it is not working for me. And so you talk to folks, and you can even just ask the model, hey, I asked for X, you did Y. how can I make that not a thing the next time?
Right.
And sometimes you get some really interesting advice on how to work more effectively with the tools. And it's kind of cool that the tools will help you work with the tools. But it's the stuff you said. How much context do you need? And then getting yourself, if you care about how it happens, you better be real specific. And if you don't actually care about how it happens, just that it happens at an accuracy level or, correctness and, style and everything that you like, don't be overly specific.
Yeah, I also like to the peanut butter and jelly sandwich example. If you look at in 2023, when all these things started happening, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to tell it that I want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Yeah.
And in 2 years, we're just going to have peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and we don't even have to do anything else.
Delivered by drones, of
hype,
course.
yeah,
Right.
drones, obviously. A lot of hype. Mm-hmm. And where we're at now, I think is far more realistic. Where you do need to talk to it about the what's the plan? What are these other things? What's the outcome? What's the image of the sandwich that I want? Right? The multimodality piece of this. And now that we're there, I think we're kind of on the, I don't know if we're on the back end of the hype curve, but we're getting to a point where people are oh, well, here's the things that I need to do to actually get what I want. Mm-hmm. Don't just say peanut butter and jelly sandwich and then expect this mythical peanut butter and jelly sandwich to appear in front of me in an immediate fashion.
Right.
If there's one thing I'd say expectations, it's when we're interacting, consider this is streaming mode, right? It's bidirectional streaming. It's actually very difficult to do at scale.
Mm-hmm. It is.
But we don't expect a chat agent, if it's a real person, hey, we talk. Sometimes it's immediate, sometimes it's 2 hours later. For whatever reason, in coding world, we expect things to be immediate. And if an agent takes 5 or 10 seconds to get to the right answer, in 2023, oh my gosh, that's far too long. Whereas I think now we're kind of to the point where it's what is that actual latency trade-off? Mm-hmm. If it takes 10 seconds or 15 seconds, but it's correct, that's fine.
I think it depends on who you talk to.
I was just going to say,
Yeah.
I think the patience and elasticity there for an early adopter or someone who was, say, patient when they were waiting for images to render or songs to download when we were younger, or those of us who have been in video and waiting for that to render in itself. I think there is a patience there, but when you're thinking about, say, a young child in a learning environment, there's no time for latency. They'll walk away from something if it's slow in its response and move on to something else. So I think it's very contextually relevant, but that's what makes this so complex and diverse depending on the solution.
And one of the things we say over and over again to the point where I'm pretty sure that anyone who's chatted with us in the last 2 years is sick of it is it depends. Mm-hmm. And you need to know your problem space, you need to know what your tolerances are, and there are solutions for a lot of these problems. I won't say all because I'm sure someone will find a example where there isn't, but it all depends on your particular use case and your particular domain, which of the many different paths you can go down with these tools is the right one. And it's that sounds very hand-wavy. There are best practices, there are established patterns, we're establishing and learning new things every day, but it's just like cloud architecture was when cloud was becoming a thing. There were some ways we did stuff in 2007, there in 2010, that aren't what we do, the way we do things now, because we've learned and we've adapted, and there are ways that certain companies do things because of their needs that are potentially overkill for another company because they have different needs. And that's the thing, is that all of these problems are different. So we say it depends a lot when we're talking to folks about well, should I use a local model or not? It depends. That's the thing, is it all depends.
It does depend, but at least we are getting some patterns in the choose your own adventure of this that allow us to make some of these decisions a little bit quicker. On that note, building on that, and I'd love for you both to answer, if you were to give folks one piece of advice in terms of an investment they could make, it could be in people, could be a tool, could be in their ideology, quite frankly, right now, or regulation even, what do you think is something that folks could be thinking about now that will be at least somewhat evergreen, taking into consideration that technology changes? Jason, I'll start with you.
That's a good one. Can I say 1.5 thing?
Yes. I'll allow it, only because you asked permission.
I think we're about to enter kind of another data renaissance. I think people are terrified right now. They're oh my gosh, all of this big data stuff is going to get blown away by these things. But I think reinvesting in first party data, if there's something that people and organizations take away, like that is actually probably like the most valuable asset that people have moving forward in large language models. Because hey, like what do you know about the customer? How do you give that like superior experience? Like, you know, that really upscale store experience, like that is based on the information that you and only you will have as an individual or an organization. You know, in terms of like taking that first step, like, you know, using something like either AI Studio or Gemini CLI, like I think one of the benefits there is just like starting to ask it for tasks. You know, ask things that are in it. You know, it's a journey to kind of like programming yourself and like programming, you know, code or all these things. But the way that you got to do is you got to like get in and start to figure out how these things work. Sometimes it doesn't work, right? And it's like also like, you know, failure is an acceptable modality in these things.
It's data.
It's like learning from it though. Like learn from it, move on to the next thing, you know, refine like your approaches. Because like we're all gonna live with this for the rest of our life. Like just like I remember when we got AOL in like 1993. Like it's like you've got mail, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is life changing because I'm not waiting for something at the post office to like come to my house.
I can hear the sound of the dial-up.
Definitely
right now.
can.
I know. I wish I had that voice. But like it's kind of that moment, right? And so it's like how are we looking to, you know, leverage that moment for like the power of like good, you know, personally and society wise. But that starts by like using it and trying it and like seeing like how it works, I think is a lot of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say something similar. Is look at the stuff you do. Look at how people are using the new technologies, generative AI models in that space. I code. I have spent a lot of time figuring out how to effectively work with a AI coding assistant, and like spend the time. And like some people are going to learn best from like watching videos or reading books and stuff, and some people, myself included, probably you, Jason, as well, we're just going to get in, get dirty, and make mistakes, and you know, learn by getting hands-on. Even if like honestly getting comfortable with how the people in your role or who do what you do every day, because your tasks and your role may not always 100% align, that is one of the most powerful things people can do. Not necessarily because the skills they will gain by doing that, the techniques they'll learn are going to be the same prompting techniques or the same, you know, data, you know, context management techniques that we're going to use in a year, but because getting comfortable with where things are going, and understanding, getting kind of a gut feel understanding for the edges of the technology today is super duper important. And the thing I will add to that, this is my half, is is that be willing to ask questions. Like one of the most important conversations I've had with some folks is they're like, hey, I tried this thing. Here's what I tried to do. It didn't work. And I'm like, tell me about the flavor of didn't work, because didn't work requires a little more data. And we were able to have a conversation about how their approach could be changed, and also maybe that they weren't using the exact right tools for the job. But like, if you're confused, ask questions, go to friends, go to the internet, and be willing to experiment and try new things, because I'm watching the change happen in real time, and just getting comfortable with the edges of the technology today and getting comfortable with learning is going to be so important.
Yes, I think that's beautifully stated, and I think the reality is nobody has the exact answer of where we're going next. I mean, I spend my life talking to the smartest people on earth about precisely this. And I can tell you there's some patterns in what we think it may be possible, but in terms of some well-illuminated pathway straight to the next stop, it's for us to define. And it's a really exciting time. Raj, I'm going to stay with you on the next question. This whole series has been about, well, it started with us talking a lot about containers. How do agents connect with containers?
I'll give you my answer, then I'm curious what Jason's answer is. Agents are code. I know that they sometimes feel like this magical thing with like unicorns, but they're code at the end of the day. Containers are a fantastic way to ship code. So if you want to like multiple container platforms inside Google Cloud, you can run your agents on those. And if you want your agents to do something off of your own computer, they need to be running somewhere where someone else can consume them, whether that's as an API endpoint or through some other means. You have to ship them. And containers are a fantastic way to do that. It's a great way to package things up. It's a great way to make sure you have the dependencies you want. We've been using containers for, 10, 15 years now, and we're still using them because they work well. And so like for me, it's just an obvious place to deploy.
Anything to add, Jason?
Yeah, so two sides, right? There's the agents and like the code that we ship in the container, and then the agent executing the container. I think the other place where I think of containers a lot is actually the agent executing things in containers. So you take something like developing code, like containers are actually great for, say, hey, you have an agent that needs to write this code, give it a new container to be able to go do its work in. We get things like observability around it. We can inspect the container to see, hey, what's the agent up to? Troubleshoot, figure out all these things. But containers make it very easy to sandbox that work. So when we think about, we're going to give the agent access to this, like, no, actually, we just gave it a container with very limited access to, even the internet, all these other things. Like, let's use that and then like have containers make containers for doing these work things and kind of make a virtuous cycle out of it.
Containers all the way down.
Yes, well, it allows for.
Is it cyclical or is it all the way down?
Is it containers in a circle? I don't know.
Well,
Maybe both.
it de-risks things. It allows for a lot of privacy. There's a lot of governance that comes with that, containers all the way down. And it makes a lot of sense right now when we're talking about data and data privacy as well.
Yeah.
So it is important to be very mindful. Jason, I'm going to stick with you because Bobby was giving me a fun graph this morning. Lots of buzz about Gemini CLI going on. Lots of stars on GitHub. What is it? What are people using it for?
Yeah, so Gemini CLI we launched just a few weeks ago. Think of it as I did not personally launch it. I wish I did. It's a way to interact with Gemini on the terminal or command line. So hey, you have a question, you can type Gemini, press enter after you've installed it, get a nice little thing that pops up, kind of like a VI or VIM or Emacs, whatever your thing of preference of choice is. And then interact with Gemini, have it interact with your code base. It can actually execute commands on your behalf, so doing things like reading files, creating directories, creating new files, modifying files. But I've been using it a lot. I find it very easy to work with the code base on those different things. It's great to see the community participation, quite frankly, as well. Like I was looking, we have probably over 1,000 ideas from the community. The roadmap is actually public, so folks can go into GitHub, see the roadmap of ideas and things that we're planning to ship. It's really kind of an open way of us doing work around this stuff, and you can even go and look at the prompts that we use. Hey, like how are we interacting with Gemini? How can you use this? Fork it for your own company if there's additional things that you want to do in it. So it's super cool.
Do you tell them all happy prompting?
I have a little thing in there. I've changed my system instructions so it says happy prompting when it signs off. Yeah, I have.
Good. I'm glad to see that you're carrying it all the way through the theme. Final question for you both. What do you hope that all this wonderful technology that we've just discussed today on the show does for your family? You were mentioning your kids. Jason, I'll start with you.
For my kids, there's so many like analogies in like history, and like I don't know where this current one will end up. Is this like Wikipedia when I was in school and it's like, wait, we can just have a thing on the internet that like has all this information, and it's like, well, you can also edit it. Like maybe that's not the best idea. We did a little bit of that. Is this like high-speed internet? Is this the internet all over again? Like it's probably somewhere in the middle of all those things. I hope that it allows them to solve more complex problems ultimately. You think about like what we were able to do once we've had the first computer, right, and like a calculator, and like, okay, now we're like launching rockets, like we're doing all these other things, which is, for society, right, like big things, but also, big changes, just in like tools that we use as a result of it. Like, I hope that it just becomes that, and I hope that it's like an enabler, not something where then, we outsource a lot of thinking to.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the thing that like we just have to, and like for my kids, like continually balance, like, where are you like being the ideator or like the creator, and like how are you using these things for like bringing this to life?
How can we critically think faster, not delegate critical
thinking,
and provide more data points to navigate what we're building? Well stated. What about you, Asha?
This is a hard question for me, but one of the reasons it's hard is that I'm just thinking about my daily life, and if you do the research on agents, you'll find out that we've had things that look like the current agents we have, just with less capabilities for a long time. I have a robot vacuum. I have a thing on my sprinkler system that checks the weather and decides not to sprinkle it. Like, those are agents that are responding to things they're responding to sensor input, and then they are taking an action based on that on my behalf. Cleaning my floor, watering my plants. And so thinking about, like, for me, it's all about, I don't know where we're going, and I'm really excited about this ride. Like, I'm really excited to see the things that people come up with to take, like, these basic ideas that have actually been around for a while in various forms. Like, chatbots have existed, I think, since, I don't know when Eliza was. That's one of the first ones I know of. It was like the 1950s or 60s. Like, it's a long way back. I played with Eliza back in high school.
In your elementary school when you were reading your animated
No,
book?
no, it was not that good. I was using DOS back then. It was a while ago. And so for me, the thing that I'm hoping for is that I get surprised in a pleasant and enjoyable way. I'm hoping that my family, my nieces, I'm hoping that my friends, that they come to me with ideas that they've used this technology for, where I'm like, wow, I wouldn't have thought of that, and that is actively making my life better, or actively making the world better. And like, that is the thing I want, is I want to see the cool stuff that this enables for everyone. And it doesn't, like, this is the big thing for me, is that it is everyone. Like, these tools bring interesting abilities, or I want to say powers, but it's not, it's a little too magical for me. We're not in a superhero universe here. But it's making this things that were previously only things that certain people could do with certain kinds of training, like coding. People can make apps now. And like, seeing, at least get them well started, seeing what people are doing with that, and seeing what is living in people's heads who maybe didn't have the time to get the skills to do this themselves, I'm excited about that. And I'm super excited to see what everyone will bring to us. And I am absolutely convinced that I'm going to be surprised in very positive and enjoyable ways, but I can't tell you what's going to surprise me. And that's the cool part. Like, it's like opening up a present, and I just don't know what's inside, and I'm very excited to find out.
I love that. We're all kind of waking up on Christmas morning here to some sort of degree to see. Wow. Well, I hope that too, and I really hope and I hope this series helps bring in that new class of creator who's going to do things that we didn't know we could solve prior to this era in technology. Jason, Asha, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
This has been really great. I'm really glad we could cover everything from PB&Js to children's books to being surprised and delighted. And I hope that all of you have had as much fun as we've had here today in Sunnyvale, California. Be sure and check out Jason and Asha's series, as well as all the links we'll have below this video, and the other 9 episodes already recorded in our exclusive series, Passport to Container, here with Google Cloud. My name's Savannah Peterson. You're watching theCUBE, the leading source for enterprise tech news.